Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton appears to subtly be stepping away from President Obama. Could this be a sure sign that she's ready to take another stab at running for the White House? In an interview with Reuters, John Hudak, a Brookings Institute fellow and presidential campaign expert, said, quote, Secretary Clinton distancing herself a bit on foreign policy matters from the administration recently. This pretty standard practice for anybody looking to succeed the sitting president, even within the same party. He went on to say it's one of the first steps for her to say we're not the same candidate. Now, in recent weeks, Clinton has also focused exclusively on foreign relations. And I spoke with Bloomberg News White House reporter Jonathan Allen and Amy Parnas, who is the senior White House correspondent for The Hill. We talked about their new book, HRC. I'm curious, and I'll just put it in a personal context. I remember when I first started covering then candidate Hillary Clinton when she was running for Senate, and they started this listening tour, which by the end everybody was willing to poke their eyes out here because there was no access and we were just traipsing around from city to city throughout the state of New York. And then by the end, when she finished her term and she became candidate Clinton, the entire press corps of New York was eating out of her hands. And in many ways, the book kind of carries from a very unsure then candidate Clinton, not sure if she wanted to go to state, to at the end here having both the department that she left behind and an administration that couldn't sing enough hosannas about her. Did you find that transformation also from the people from their first impression of her till finally when she left, how much it changed?
Yeah, we had one person who worked for Defense Secretary Robert Gates, who was a Republican, who said that they went through sort of what they called the stages of Hillary, where at first he dreaded working with her, and then over time he began to grudgingly respect her work ethic and her smarts and her strategic skills, and then ultimately thought he couldn't believe how much he liked her. This person that he had originally really thought that he was going to dislike. And we found a lot of people talked about that during the course of the book, that they found the little things that she did, the hard work that she put in to be endearing. And it's not the kind of natural charisma or charm that her husband has in terms of being able to win over an audience in the span of a few minutes. But the people who worked closely with her generally came away with pretty positive impressions, at least during that time at state.
And I think more than anything, she won the president over. And the fact of the matter is, we have a scene in the book where we talk about President Obama asking Secretary Clinton to stay on a little longer. They're aboard Air Force One, they're in his private cabin, and they're talking, and he's kind of, you know, really making the case that she should stay. He was saying, why ruin a good thing? We have something good going, let's keep it going. And she, of course, turned him down.
Well, Amy, how about the initial offer to her and her initial resistance? You categorize in the book here how initially she didn't think she was going to get the offer, even though a confidant of hers said it was coming. When it didn't come, she refused not once, twice, but I believe it was 3 times till she finally said yes. How much of that do you think was really posturing that she always wanted the gig, but on her terms, and how much of it did she think that this just wouldn't be a workable relationship until it seemed that one night she went to bed with one answer and woke up with a different one?
I think it's a little of both. You know, I think she didn't want to let him down, and she didn't want to let the country down, and particularly the party. You know, but she basically says in the book that if she were the president-elect and she had asked him to be her Secretary of State, she would have expected him to say yes. So I think it's a little bit of both. You know, I think it wouldn't have looked good for herself if she wanted to run again in 2016. If she would have said no, she wouldn't have looked like a team player.
You know, I'm curious, an inside baseball question, Jonathan, maybe, but Harry Reid comes across in the book as somebody that after the campaign and even during the campaign when Democrats had to pick sides during the primary, certainly made it clear that he wasn't exactly embracing lawmakers or running over to Hillary's side once it looked like then candidate Obama was going to be the nominee. Moreover, when they said goodbye to her in the Senate, he came across as a little bit duplicitous. Senator Schumer, I'm curious, it looks a little complicated, his relationship with Hillary. Which one was it? Was he happy to see that, you know, finally he'd get the oxygen back and that once again, the most dangerous place in Washington would be between him and a camera? How did Schumer feel about her leaving?
I want to make sure Senator Schumer's not behind me between, putting me between the camera and him at the moment. Yeah, I think there were some senators. I think she was really hurt by it. There were some senators who she thought were her friends. Senator Schumer endorsed her. Was one of the leading people out there publicly for her, and behind the scenes had given Barack Obama advice about running. So. I think there was, and even after the campaign, these guys were basically in charge of the Senate, and they weren't willing to find a nice soft landing for her, try to carve out a chairmanship for her, or an issue on which she could really be a leader. And so I think, they said that parting was sweet sorrow, but I think really for both sides, saying goodbye was, when they had tears, it was really tears of joy.
Jonathan, Benghazi, both in terms of where we are now and where we very well may be in a couple of years in the next presidential campaign, if in fact she runs. What have we learned in terms of what did state know in terms of how much of a serious security risk it was beforehand, her role from when those alerts were made to that tragic day, and then after the fact? Crystallize as best you can what at least internally within Hillary world they view Benghazi right now as maybe even a campaign issue in 2016.
We have 2 full chapters in the book on Benghazi and a timeline, a sort of minute-by-minute timeline of what happened there. I think when you ask what did they know at the State Department, it's actually 2 different stories there. The people on the ground who worked for the State Department, including Ambassador Stevens, his predecessor, Ambassador Gene Kretz, some of the others, understood that the situation was getting much more dangerous in Benghazi at the time. They understood that other kind of slow to recognize what that threat really meant. Certainly didn't quite grasp how dangerous it was going to be for Ambassador Stevens in Benghazi on that fateful day. The request for security, so far as we know, didn't get up to Hillary Clinton's level. They did get up as high as an undersecretary, which is 2 levels below her. Pat Kennedy was the undersecretary for management, denied some of the greater security requests. That said, those security requests were actually for Tripoli, not Benghazi, several hours away. It's not clear that if they had gotten the security that they were seeking in Tripoli, that would have made a difference in Benghazi. And obviously, Chris Stevens was very interested in expeditionary diplomacy, wanted to be out in dangerous places representing the United States of America with a light security footprint. Obviously didn't want to put himself in the peril that he did end up putting himself in. But I think part of it is a question of the philosophy of the United States having diplomats in these really dangerous places with lots of terrorist activity nearby, trying to get the local politician to go with the local population to go with the United States and not the terrorists. As far as a campaign issue goes, we've talked to Republicans, and there's no doubt that Hillary Clinton is going to hear the words Benghazi and Chris Stevens over and over and over again if she runs for president.
The last chapter in your book is The Last Glass Ceiling, and before that, Ready for Hillary. At least from the folks that I know that are, everybody claims to be close to Hillary that do, said it's not if, but when she does this, and this is the moment she's built up to her whole political career. Do you guys walk away with the same impression? There's an inevitability to a campaign here, how everything's positioned, or is there still a genuine reluctance here to get back into national electoral politics after everything she's done?
This is a complicated decision, Richard, and just like anybody potentially embarking on what could be a 2-year or 6-year or 10-year adventure of campaigning and potentially governing. This is a huge personal decision to make. That said, if you read the book, if you look at what we've put together, the reporting that we've done, I don't think you can walk away with the conclusion of anything other than she's been running since the end of the 2008 campaign.
Again, it's HRC. Jonathan, Amy, thank you both. I really appreciate the time.
Thank you for having us.
Take care, Richard.
And I don't get paid for this. Really good book. She's running, right?
Yes.
Yes. When do we think she makes the thing official and tries to crowd out the field?
Well, she's already basically cleared the field. And one little correction that I would disagree with the interview subject, she started running the day that she announced she was dropping out against Obama. She took a little break.
But when did she publicly start running? When did she?
Okay, that's a good question.
Thank you very much.
That's a good question.
Thank you very much.
The day she started as Secretary of State. Secretary of State.
I would say after the midterms. The midterms were in November. I wouldn't be surprised to see her in New Hampshire and Iowa in December.
You know, everybody says on the Republican side, Benghazi, Benghazi. She's trying to address it now. Is there an answer she can give that's going to not make the issue go away, but not make it issue 1, 2, and 3 in the campaign?
I think she's incredibly talented. You know, one should not underestimate her ability to answer it to the satisfaction of most people. The ideologues will never find it satisfactory. It doesn't matter what she says.
That's it.
And the ordinary people who are, you know, they're worried about their pocketbook
Yeah.
and their school. She's going to answer it satisfactorily
She's
enough.
not going to win the Fox News crowd anyway.
No.
So the
So I
people
think-
who are Benghazing her to death, she doesn't have to answer
You know what's
them.
funny is, I think people forget, because she is the approval ratings for her and everything else, she's not a dynamic speaker. You know, I know, we know and cover her. She can wrap you around her finger. But I think if people want competency now and somebody that's now on the job training, I think that's her ticket. If she can convey that, I think she's got it. Anyway, guys, I got to wrap this thing up, so thank you so much as
My
always.
pleasure, as always.
Dom, Andrew, guys, thank you very much. When we come back here, a very moving ceremony at the White House today. You'll want to stick around to see it. Stay with us.